so small, I got big dreams.
Ho 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 everybody, welcome back to Pun Fun, where we have fun with the puns. My name is Ryan and we're going to check out Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, what gift for the holidays than checking out this beautiful movie that Sam Raimi has put together for us. If you haven't seen that movie, there are major spoiler alerts ahead. I can't stress it enough. I'm going to talk about everything. I'm not going to blur out everything that was in that movie. I'm putting it out there, and we're also going to talk about all the source material that we kind of went through, what they went through, and what does this mean for the MCU? Where are we heading? Where from the inspiration they got it from? What does this mean going forward? Now we're going to talk about the suits that Peter wear, well, all the Spider-Men wear. See, like that. Again, big spoiler alert ahead. Anyways, we're going to talk about all the suits that we see within this episode. We're going to talk about all the Netflix characters that are bleeding into the MCU. We're also going to talk about the Sinister Six, all the characters that we saw. Yes, if you count them out, we actually do have the 6 villains. There's actually more that we see within other trailers, like, for example, Morbius. But we're going to sideline that just a tiny little bit for now. We're also going to talk about the Venom Saga. That is very important, and that's where we're heading with the Tom Holland series, because I think they want to renew him for another 3 series or 3 episodes or 3 movies, so another trilogy. Very excited about that. So if you haven't seen the 90s animated series, you want to check that out. There's a lot of inspiration from that, obviously from the comic books as well. But seeing how they made this movie and where it's heading, especially with Ned. So we're also going to talk about Ned's fate, or potential fate, and MJ. So MJ is the new element amongst, the entire, internet and all that. There's quite a bit of, hints that they've been giving outside of the movie that will be giving you guys some information. Hopefully we're right. I mean, everything seems to be pointing towards there, and I wouldn't see why it wouldn't. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Hey everybody, the holidays was crazy. I mean, this movie was just insane. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I mean, it was just a masterpiece, especially from all the Spider-Man movies. I think this might actually be my favorite just because of the roller coaster of emotion. I mean, I grew up with the with the 60s cartoon, obviously afterwards, but also the animated series, and also the Tobey Maguire, live action, if you will. But this one was just a beautiful note. I mean, a lot of fan service for sure. Anyways, I'm enough rambling on my behalf. Let's get into some of the information. So, having his, suit be splashed with green, killing Mysterio's murder. Yeah, it was an easy fix. He basically just swapped it out, having, the inside out. And it gave this nice, cool, techie look because all the wires were exposed with the rubber, or I guess whatever insulated material, on the outside. Which I guess we've seen in previous renditions of the suit. Well, when basically Ned was tampering with it, I guess they had to flip it inside out. Anyways, what was very cool is that we actually do see Spider-Man in a black suit in the comic book, as I'll put right here for you, or here, whichever has more space. Yeah, this side. Anyways, he does have that sling-a-majig that basically Doctor Strange, creates for him so he can, catch them all and put them in these weird caves. Again, the cave idea comes back from the the Amazing Spider-Man, where the suits were kind of in these kind of cells, if you will, to begin with. So I guess that is a cool callback to this dungeon type version. So yeah, this being said, yeah, I mean, it was cool that he was able to catch them and put them where they were, even the tree. So I mean, even if they were to catch a Groot would still be able to go through, unless he has a different kind of organisms, seeing that he has a need to eat, and well, I mean, living is living, so maybe that's why it was there. Anyways, we're getting off track. Let's get on to the next suit. So the following suit is the Iron Spider suit. So the Iron Spider suit we've seen previously done by Tony Stark. We've seen with the golden arms, which usually was red and gold, and now they incorporated some of the blue. However, we do see more of that version come out when Doc Ock gives him back the suit. It kind of changes also the look. Because it's basically kind of how Venom takes a bit of the identity of the spider. So right now, Venom doesn't have that, iconic white spider, on his chest. It's only because once he's actually abducted or taken over Spider-Man that he, acknowledges, the I guess the coolness of that look and whatever. And that's how he actually gets that logo onto him. What's important is not that Doc Ock just gave him that little cool design. It really is, or that AI file, if you will. It's definitely a call to the Superior Spider-Man. So the Superior Spider-Man saga is basically Doc Ock annihilates Peter from his mind, takes him out, and then basically implants himself there, and then realizes, oh, there is a need for Spider-Man, so he becomes, Spider-Man with, the arms and the red arms and everything, which is definitely why when he gets taken over by the nanobots, his arms become red. I don't think it's only because of, Spider-Man or Iron Man. It really is, I think, an homage to the Superior Spider-Man, because he does have a change of heart, and seek the best of him, and understands the importance of Spider-Man, kind of like in the story here in the No Way Home saga movie. That all being said, we're also going to talk about the characters now that are going to be shown. Obviously, you have Jamerson, showcasing these characters, but these people may exist, or actually do exist, within the MCU already. It's just that they haven't been showcased, or they've followed a different route. Now seeing the potential, because remember, you're not supposed to show these characters or interact with them, because you don't want to give them knowledge of what the potentials could be on either side. So this being said, the Doc Ock that may be within this universe or the MCU may now pursue those arms or whatever, and carry out, fiendish ideologies, or maybe for the best. We don't know. This will definitely do a callback when we talk about the Sinister Six. Now, for our third suit, this is the classic suit, the white, the blue, the red, and a little bit of the white. So this is basically the classic look that we get from the 60s. We also see it within the animated series as well, and that's important because that is going to guide us to where Spider-Man is going. I mean, everything is so well lined up. I don't see why they wouldn't, and having a nice little, variation of it would definitely be cool for the MCU. That 90s show was just amazing, the way they really pushed out, such a great storyline. I enjoyed it. Nostalgia probably plays a big role in it, but just the graphics and everything in it was just perfect. So I can definitely see how they can, adapt it to the movies. So definitely stoked, and I'll explain a bit more why we think it's going that way, especially since we had the Kingpin show up, we have Daredevil showing up. If you guys have seen it, you know where I'm heading with this. And one little tidbit here is the Venom Suit. So the Venom Suit obviously is still in black, and people are like, hey, how come he doesn't have the white, spider logo? He hasn't abducted or taken over a Spider-Man yet, so he doesn't really know about that whole spider thing yet. And that's kind of why he keeps it later on, because he understands and knows who the identities and everything is afterwards. So that'll, we'll put that aside for now. It's very cool that there is a bit of Venom that is left. I think they're in Mexico, so how will it travel from there to New York? There's actually a character that, does get it from Mexico, becomes Venom, and then carries on his missions, and we're going to get into more of that information as we get closer to those movies. But for now, all you need to know is that, yes, that will make its way to Peter, and we'll get into his downfall and all that jazz. And speaking of downfall, that tree falling, if you've seen the Hawkeye episodes, we see that the tree was actually still up. So the whole No Way Home happened before Kate Bishop, took down the tree, which is so weird because you would think they would hear about, all of this racket and noise, especially so close to New York. It's just crazy. They do talk about the new Statue of Liberty. So you would think that it happened way before. And yeah, I think they fixed that, or maybe confirmed that timeline when they said, when Christmas came about later on, that's when the two movies, the show and the movie, had to intersect. But yeah, so we know that that occurred before the whole Hawkeye thing. New York seems to be back in order and doing well. Now, for those two shows, we get the Kingpin. We also got Daredevil, which was a fun and amazing, reveal. A lot of people called it from the get-go. We were excited because we thought he'd need some legal, aid. And to see him back on the screen was just amazing. What does this mean for the other Netflix characters going forward? Well, we do know that Daredevil will be present, especially for the Echo series. So it makes a lot of sense that he would be present for that. Also, the Kingpin. The Kingpin is going to have a big role now coming back and reprising. The Kingpin actually may be running for mayor. So him getting shot, if you haven't seen Hawkeye, big spoiler alert, he does get shot, but he doesn't, die. He just gets gravely wounded. He's been taken care of by Smite, and then Smite is the guy, the guy in the chair, if you will, for Kingpin. And he creates these, characters and whatever to help him with his campaign, being like, hey, Kingpin can take this down and this down. It's going to help him, take down a lot of other mobsters, like, what's her name? Kate's mom, Eleanor. Through the legal system, through the justice system, because he's going to be like, hey, we need to clean the city of, this and that and that. I don't know why it kind of sounds like Mayor Quimby, but going forward, yeah, we're going to see a lot more characters, bleed through, and I'm excited to see, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. I think Luke Cage would be the best one now. I think Luke Cage will be so cool, especially with Shang-Chi already being established, and then having, if we do have Iron Fist also into the mix, I think that would just be crazy. Or even like Iron Fist, showing up at Kamatage. Oh my god. See, these are the kind of Easter eggs and reveals that they can now do with this whole, possibilities being open, because they've now absorbed all those characters through, the Netflix series. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And what's cool about the Kingpin, again, with Spider-Man, which can tie this up, is that Spider-Man actually does work for the Kingpin at some point, not knowingly. So he's Peter Parker working for Wilson Fisk, and helping him, with his tech and kind of, helping his industry grow. He was not able to get a job anywhere else, and I mean, this was a great way to kind of, hey, you need a job, you have a weird past, come see us. I mean, Peter has the knowledge, and why not? He can definitely now find a place and start ranking up within the industry until he finally realizes, oh damn, I've been actually working for the Kingpin. Anyways, that all being said, let's get into the villains, because we're talking about Kingpin, who may be one of the Sinister Six. We don't know. What we do know is we get to see the classic Sinister Six. So we have a Doc Ock, we have, all the jazz that you've seen in the movie, because you've seen, I'm not going to repeat all of that. But we also get to see the Scorpion trying to come through the multiverse. The version that we actually see is the one that we see in the Spider-Verse. So with Miles Morales and all that jazz. So from the Ultimate Universe, where he's more of a Scorpion than just with a suit. So yeah, and even Rhino. The Rhino looks more like the 90s version with the little cutout for his head and, the horn and all that too. So this may actually be inspiration, or taken as inspiration, because Smite actually helps and creates these characters, via the Goblin Serum and all that. We've seen Scorpion with, the what do you call it? The tattoo. So we know he's in this universe already. He may actually go to Fisk and say, hey, I need some help. Maybe this would be exposed within Morbius, because we do get to see other characters like the Vulture, and himself, obviously Morbius. It's just, there's so much going on. It's just such a great love note from like anybody who's seen the series and who has like read the books as well. Because now we're actually going to see all the villains come out full-fleshed. And remember, folks, everybody was like, oh, do not do a movie with too many villains. Too many villains, mean obviously a flop. Well, it's always been a flop so far. But this one was it was so well balanced, because obviously the reveal of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. I mean, that, I think everybody was just going bonkers within theaters. And then having Andrew Garfield get so much love. I mean, his redemption was definitely there, not only by saving MJ, but also just showing his just being genuine and always being taken as the the least favorite, if you will. That people have definitely that definitely struck a heartstrings with everyone. So I can definitely see why there's a lot of talk of an Amazing Spider-Man 3, which I think would be very cool to have it launched even after so many years, and even done by Marvel Studios, if you will, and Sony, because obviously the way it's tied up. But yeah, maybe having him introduce maybe Gwen Stacy, but then Gwen's dead, so maybe through the multiverse have Gwen come through. And if that's not the case at all, just him, I don't know, go crazy, or even turn into the Man Spider, or maybe introduce the X-Men because he's tampering with mutation. I think that's what Morbius is all about. So Morbius, obviously changing his shape, changing his form into the Bat. This is going to lead into maybe not the X-Men, but changes. And it's going to be an evolution step in many ways, and I think that's what the MCU is going to go into the phase 5. It's how the repercussion of all these, multiverses, and now we're getting, signs of characters having multitudes of themselves and going into the Secret Wars. But, obviously we're going to talk about the Scroll Wars, and it's just, there's so much, and I can't put it all in one video, but I hope you understand that we'll get through this together, and we're going to pace it going forward, and this way we can all understand where the MCU is heading. Now, the Norman Osborn that we see obviously made the serum and then bounced. So we don't know if he was able to actually distribute this to himself within that universe, so he was able to find Norman Osborn within the MCU and say, hey, look, this is going to change your life. You need to create an empire. Go for it. And then, all that goes on from there. Or he seeks out somebody who he trusts enough to carry on the legacy of Green Goblin. Now, I know there's talk of Hobgoblin. There's always been talk of Hobgoblin because of Ned's name, and then Ned obviously like destined to betray Peter. He will betray Peter, unfortunately. This is the way of all of their best friends, if you will. He's going to basically so now at the end, so we're going to skip ahead, we're going to go back to the Venom Saga later. We're going to talk about Ned and how we believe that he will be the Hobgoblin, because the Hobgoblin does get brainwashed. He is an inspiration from the Green Goblin, because the Green Goblin goes missing for so many years, and then pop goes this new character with a more powerful, but he's not insane. So in the sense that he's still mindset and still has his mind on his shoulders, so he's able to still think straight. We do see Ned, and like I said, at the last scene where he goes into the donut shop to get his daily fix, I guess, or whichever fix. What's interesting to see there is that he's a very lonely person. Besides MJ, I think he hasn't really made much friends. He may have maybe even isolated himself. And for somebody who doesn't really, who was very a tech guy, he was never really on his phone. Here you can see he was just fully absorbed in his phone. And I'm not saying people who are fully absorbed in their phone will become villains in the future. I mean, I don't know, but radiation's a hell of a drug. What I do know is that this is actually going to have him, push his studies, as he probably would have done anyways, but maybe towards the dark side, seek out, maybe a little more lucrative work, get more money to help out the family, and potentially become, the Hobgoblin. The Hobgoblin from even the animated series or even the comic books is not a permanent thing. He comes in, he goes away, only because he's more of a hitman for hire. In this case, will Ned stay the Hobgoblin? Yeah, I think he's going to try to kill Peter, or at least Spider-Man, without knowing who he is, obviously, without knowing Peter and having the influence that Peter gave. They showed a lot of magic, so will that also come into play later on? Yes. I mean, I don't know. That's a tough one, because they did mention, the Sorcerer Supreme. So the new Sorcerer Supreme did mention that, things are a bit wonky. Portals are kind of opening up everywhere. So maybe he wasn't really, a pro at opening it up. Maybe anybody could really open it up if they had the sling on their hands. So it gives them more of an ease. But I can see that how they would incorporate him into the series and having more of a presence. Maybe even, replacing Doctor Strange once, Cumberbatch's contract is up. Yeah. So Ned, we're going to sideline him for now. But yes, there was definitely an Easter egg as well when they're all communicating with each other, where you see Ned has turned his back. So we only see him, back to us. And there is a pumpkin that, MJ was supposed to pick up and clean up and remove from the, the environment of her shop, which is a dead giveaway. And it looked exactly like the pumpkins that they would use with the pumpkin bombs, basically, when they would throw. So, I mean, there's just so many, like, again, when they, the Spider-Man were saying, yeah, you're destined to, kill or, betray him, but don't worry, you're not maybe one of them. I think that is going to be an absolute point where all the Peters need to, go through that phase, or all the sidekicks or best friends need to go through. Now, this is going to be heavy, and I mean, you can take this with a grain of salt. Definitely, tin foil, Santa hat, if you will, on. So put it on. One thing we also see in that scene is we also get the black cats. We have a whole bunch of them that kind of are everywhere within that room, amongst all the different kind of, decorations they could have had. that one really stuck out, and it was really, again, when we see MJ, that's when we see the Black Cat. Now, I know she's supposed to be Felicia Silverstone, but in this case, MJ could be. I mean, they've already tweaked a few characters to be who we didn't think were supposed to be whoever, and they, reprised that role, so why not? And even for and this is where we get off a bit off the train here, is we do see her with, the Spider-Man, her spider-inspired dress during the premiere, and she has these, like, masquerade type, Spidey eyes, but who's to say that's not maybe a kind of a foreshadowing of, the masquerades that they do for basically Catwoman. So there's a lot of covers where she's always, in this kind of, mask. I mean, if you've seen any of the Nolan series or any of the series in general, she's always a masquerade with the cat ears and everything. So that can definitely be a nod, or at least a big ass, like, foreshadowing of where they want to take this character. I mean, in this series, she does, rob a few places, and she ends up helping Spider-Man. So I think just the fact that she still carries the chain, she kind of still remembers that she's in love with somebody, that she's not able to remember who it is, but it's a place of, of a good place, if you will. She may turn to the dark side, just as, Ned is, or who knows, maybe Ned might introduce her to that world because of that. And then that's where she meets Peter, via Fisk, and, she realizes, like, oh, hey, that chain was actually given to me by Peter, and then she realizes, oh, he's the lover of life, and they, consolidate, but she gets powers, via the Black Cat series. So you definitely want to check that out, or keep an eye out for that. I mean, it seems like a stretch, but MJ has been known to have been given powers before. So even in Renew Your Vows, she does get powers, as they have their daughter Annie, and then even in the animated series, we get this version where she's actually made of, well, Hydra Man actually makes her out of, like, water, and then she, dissipates and goes away with Hydra Man, and she's actually the fake MJ with, Peter was about to marry. So anyways, I know it's a lot to digest, but I think that's where we're heading. I think that's gonna be our new characters. That's the fate of our, characters. As for Peter now, and as we've mentioned, the Venom Saga, this is actually gonna be the exact same way as he, incorporates or gets onto that suit. So he is alone, maybe a little desperate, maybe, kind of depressed, and he doesn't have anybody who knows him anymore. He's starting his life over again, maybe resenting the choices that he made. But I mean, for a Marvel movie, this definitely had a lot of dark themes, and the fact that it ended with such a dark note was insane. And we'll kind of get also into the Multiverse of Madness, quite, maybe to end things off. But he does actually, the Venom suit feeds off that energy and kind of takes advantage of the fact that Peter will feel better and will feel happy, and maybe kick in a bit of endorphins in his body, give him, a better look, a better feel. And he's like, you know what, I love the Venom suit, he's gonna keep it. And that's how he kind of pushes everybody away, but in this case he has no one to push anyways, and just embraces the Venom suit. This all being said, yeah, Peter is going to, help whoever it is. So now that he's seen Daredevil, well, he doesn't know who he is anyways, but as we've seen Daredevil, there's going to be this, collision of everybody. So there's going to be Punisher, there's going to be Blade, there's going to be Morbius, there's going to be Spider-Man, there's going to be Will and Fisk, there's going to be Smite, and the list just keeps getting bigger and bigger for this one crazy story arc, which, looking at it now, was just beautifully put together and slapped together while they were still introducing a lot of characters. Now that we've seen everybody except for Blade, we've only heard about him in the end of the Internals, which, it's still debatable, but I think the actual director said, yeah, it actually is the character that plays Blade. So I think that's going to be Phase 5. Phase 5 is going to be all about killing vampires or seeking, vindication for everyone. So maybe the villains or maybe the heroes. That's what the trilogy is going to be all about. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I'm going to leave you guys with one last little tiny tidbit, and this is the trailer that we see for the Multiverse of Madness. So the Multiverse of Madness, we see it, be very similar, or if not, a copy paste of the What If episode. So if you haven't seen it, you definitely want to check it out, where Doctor Strange kind of, wants to go back in time to save the love of his life, to have the life that he missed out on because of being a superhero and all, and in this case because of the accident, and doesn't it's not able to do it and actually breaks and collides and destroys the universe. And the way that it kind of like floats up, a lot of people were saying in the theaters like, oh, it's Venom. No, in the series itself you actually saw the universe liquefy itself, as he wasn't able to save it, and he encapsulated into this bubble where he traps himself. So will we see the exact same thing? No, because now we're gonna get to see Shumagorath, who we've been calling it from the get-go. So I mean, kudos to anybody who was on the train with us from the get-go, for calling out Shumagorath. I mean, he's been a character within the games. He's actually somebody who's quite popular and kind of came out of the limelight. So will he absorb Shumagorath? I mean, that is still to be determined. If he does, I mean, Marvel is the MCU has always been about like self-improving because there's something bigger coming along. So if he's able to absorb the darker side or Shumagorath, or he absorbs Shumagorath in order to become the Dark One, I mean, why? Like, who is that being that they're trying to defeat or destroy in the end? I mean, Kang is pretty powerful, but to that point, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be insane, and we're all about that. We can't wait to finally see it sometime, I guess, 2022. Hopefully, if nothing gets delayed. If you guys enjoyed this episode, I mean, I knew it was a doozy. I know there's a lot of information, and hopefully it helps you better understand what we just saw. But again, hopefully you guys saw it with a open heart, because it was just a great movie. So if you've enjoyed this episode, we would ask that you leave a like, definitely share it with any of the friends who you think would either enjoy what we said, or maybe be like, hey, what is he talking about? Why would MJ become Black Cat? I mean, go ahead, we're all for it. We're all about having these discussions. The contest, as we've mentioned, was one ongoing, which will end exactly on New Year's Day. So this will be finalized, and we'll have our live episode on the 2nd of January. So the 2nd of January 2022 at 6 o'clock. So that is 6 o'clock Eastern time. We are going to try to go live on YouTube to announce our winners for both the Dan Mendoza contest and the Nightmare Before Christmas contest. And we're also going to talk about a bit of what we have planned for year 2022. We have some amazing artists that have already confirmed for the year. We have still some, that are still pending because of the holidays. So we can only imagine what we have, just lined up. We have so much stuff to unbox that came up. So this year is just going to be amazing, and I hope you guys stay for the ride. So you definitely hit that subscribe button just to be on top of anything and everything that we put out for you guys. And yeah, happy holidays, happy New Year, and hope the best for you. Much success to whatever it is you put your heart into, and take it easy, guys. Peace.